film or series lit your fuse and made you have to tell stories on screen as an actor and as a director?
Well, I grew up watching all the usual stuff of that era. The first thing I ever really saw at the cinema, my sister took me to A Hard Day's Night, which is a pretty good start. You know, what was it? Jason and the Argonauts, Christopher Lee as Fu Manchu, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Batman. In my early teens, I got a membership at the National Film Theatre when that first opened. So I came late to the sort of British realism. Look Back in Anger, Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, you know, Kathy Come Home. But the one that made a first real big impression on me was Saturday Night, Sunday Morning. Saturday Night, Sunday Morning was the first time I had sort of seen a real brutally honest look at the sort of working class, and a magnificent performance by Albert Finney. You develop a sort of a communion, a connection. It is vulnerable, menacing, angry. I didn't quite know what to make of it, I think, when I first saw it, but I know that it sort of really made an impression on me. And the one sort of actor that, and I'm talking about, you know, Tom Courtenay, Albert Finney, Alan Bates, Oliver Reed, you know, these Alec Guinness, Peter Sellers, I mean, all those people that I could say, Laurence Olivier, you know, that influenced one, along with, you know, Hoffman, Pacino, De Niro, Hackman, or in that big bag of talent. I saw Malcolm McDowell in a film called The Raging Moon. I'm not sure what it's called in America, but it was called The Raging Moon. It was a Brian Forbes film. And there was something about that character. It was like the lights got brighter in the room or something. I remember watching it thinking, I want to do that. I'd never been in a play, a school play. I had never read a play. I had no idea of any of it, except I want to do that for a living. I was 15, 16.
He played a guy who was an athlete, and then he had a disease, and he ended up in a wheelchair, and he fell in love with a woman who was also in a wheelchair. But was there something about what you watched and how he performed this character who changed and somehow found a purpose?
I have not seen the film since, but I remember at the end when he's coming back and the girl dies, and he's in the wheelchair and he says, I've pissed myself. And the caretaker to him says, oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter. And he goes, yes, it does. That's the beginning of the journey for him, isn't it, really? It's he's cocky, he's a bit of a womanizer, he's a bit of a drinker, he's young, he's got all of his life ahead of him. And then he gets struck down. The sort of resentment and the anger that comes up because of it. I don't know, I just sort of connected with it. But that last line that he has always stayed with me. And there was, you know, Malcolm, he's got that face it's almost like a clown. He's got a very sort of unusual sort of face with those big, big blue eyes, that full mouth, he's got that nose. And again, there's a vulnerability and a menace to him, which obviously then worked, you know, in If and particularly Clockwork Orange, you know. So that was the real spark. And I luckily, it's a crazy world, you know. I got to meet and become friendly with Malcolm. And he had a star. His star was, you know, on Hollywood. And I went to the ceremony, and I actually I really thanked him. He changed my life.
Yeah. When you were making your way as an actor early on, what movie or series did you watch that was so good it made you say, what am I doing here? How can I play in this sandbox when I'm watching this incredible work?
I remember going to a matinee of Raging Bull and being so overwhelmed with the thing that I came out and bought a ticket for the evening performance. And when I had a bite to eat and then went back and I watched it, you know, at the matinee, and then because I couldn't quite believe what I was watching. Just the mastery of composition and cinematography and acting and the level of sort of performance. But a favorite of mine that I came to again later on, but I'm still talking, you know, 30 odd years ago, was The Conversation, a masterpiece to me. And I've been lucky enough, I've got to work with Coppola and in a different genre, in a different thing. But when he's on his game, I mean, arguably, one of the greatest directors. I mean, I've spoken over my time, I've spoken to, you know, students and acting students or film students, and I would always say, go and look at, you know, Godfather Part 2 as just a masterclass in acting, storytelling, production design, cinematography. I mean, it's got the whole package. But Conversation, it's just perfection, I think, from beginning to end. Just Hackman as an actor is, I couldn't even scratch my initials on his effing toenail. I just think he's just something completely else.
Well, now maybe it was a good reaction to something you did or approval from someone whose opinion really mattered to you. You know, what first gave you the confidence that you did belong?
Really? 1980, I was at the Glasgow Citizens Theatre and I was in a play called Desperado Corner, and the director took me to one side and said, you know, you're really good. And I'd gone through drama school and I'd gone through other work. You know, it wasn't my first job. It was close to it. No one had ever said that to me before. You know, it's you know, it's funny. I did Mank, you know, and I still don't know if David Fincher thinks I'm any good in the film because he's never told me. I've got used to it. I'm a bit more confident than I used to.
You know, I look at your career, and we were talking before you came on, and I said, you know, you wanted to have a career. Gary's is the career that you want because the way he's played it, he plays lead roles, but he'll never peak. You'll never get tired of seeing him because of your versatility. And I think of everything from the Rastafarian drug dealer in True Romance, or, you know, Sid Vicious. I'd love for you to kind of address those risky journeys you've taken in the context of this next question, which is, what was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome to allow you to turn the projects that influenced you into your own language as an actor?
it would appear that my process is turn it down first and then it'll come back if it's meant to be. There's a lot of stuff I've done where it wasn't like I never said yes straight away.
Sid and Nancy was that, right?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them, though. I'll give you an example. I didn't want to do Smiley. I knew it was a great part. I knew it was a really good project. But the ghost of Alec Guinness was almost too much to cope with. And it went away, and then it came back, and then it then it went away again. Then it came back, and then it was really, really down to the wire. You've got to make a decision about this. And I was terrified, but I knew I couldn't give up the opportunity. I couldn't let someone else do it. And I said yes. And then I said yes, and I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life, and then was just sort of terrified up to the point of doing it. And then once I started doing it, it was like, oh, maybe I didn't know what all the fuss was about, but I kind of built up this dragon for Alec Guinness, you know what I mean, who had such a success with it. And then I found a way in, made it my own, and once I basically got to the set on the first day, and I thought, oh, I know what I'm doing, or I know where I am, and I was okay. But how they've happened have been things that I haven't chased, or you know what I mean, that came in. It was luck as well of being at the right time. You know, I did Sid and Nancy, and I play this sort of like grungy punk rocker kid, and the next job I get is Prick Up Your Ears, which is a homosexual playwright from the 60s. And, you know, back to back, if you see it, it looks like a bit of wizardry. You know, oh my God, he did this, and now he's the, you know, but that's just the harmonic. You know what I mean? I mean, I never sort of consciously said, now I've got to play someone like this. It you know, it just sort of came in and came my way, and a lot of stuff I've turned down, and it came back, and it was very, very successful for me. I didn't want to take on Churchill. I thought it was a ridiculous idea. I said, look at me physically, I look nothing like him. You know, I could play maybe Chamberlain, but Churchill, what are they thinking? And, you know, and that was go away. And then it came back, and I said, no. And, you know, and I don't know, somehow I said yes, and then got into it, and, you know, and I've got an Oscar on the shelf. Some you come at with great fear. It's often the ones that terrify you are the ones that turn out great.
In Oppenheimer, your Harry Truman, I wonder, like in your mind, what was his deal? He took that bomb and he dropped it because he wanted the war to end, but it almost seemed like a convenient way to move on.
I don't really, well, it's that's a hard one to specifically answer, because it's one scene in the Oval Office, and we've seen nothing before and nothing after. It's through Chris Nolan's prism. You know what I mean? I know that Truman, because of where he came from, was very forthright and very direct. And maybe that was his appeal initially, you know what I mean? But he's a little menacing in the scene. He did evidently say, I never ever want to see that crybaby again.